Hello everyone, Teresa Alicia here at Marrickville Road, Marrickville, in front of the old office of this criminal here, Anthony Albanese. He has the seat of Grangler. As I said, the 9th of November I encourage Australians to go in front of the corrupt criminal Labor politicians' offices and lawfully and peacefully call for their arrest using criminal charges under the Commonwealth and state laws, and all the laws and legislation applied to the criminal charges there. Because I get here, Marrickville Road, Marrickville, he's Anthony Albanese, he has his seat. He's the politician for Grangler. But when I get here, his office, there's no office here, but on the Google Maps and his public electoral address for this seat is this address, 334A Marrickville Road, Grangler. Now, a local lady just told me that they moved his electoral office a couple of months ago and they have not told the public where Anthony Albanese's electoral office is. So it's still public as 334A Marrickville Road, Marrickville, the seat of the politician's office for Grangler, but it's not here, he's not here. So they're lying about where his electoral office is. Does he have an electoral office anymore? It looks like no. That he does not have an electoral office, which is really corrupt for any politician to do that. Now, I'm a teacher of 30 years, and I've got a Master of Education. I wrote this big book, published this big book last year, as thousands, probably millions of Australians know, and I proved that the position of Prime Minister is not in the Australian Constitution. There is no position of Prime Minister in the Australian Constitution. So the last Prime Ministers for the last 125 years are all fake. It's not in the Australian Constitution. If you read the Australian Constitution, the position of Prime Minister and the office of Prime Minister is not in there at all. And under Section 61 to 70 of the Constitution, it's the Governor-General of Australia. The Governor-General is the rightful political leader of Australia, okay? Section 61 to 70 of the Constitution. Now, they have to form what's called the Governor-General in Council, the Federal Executive Council, which appoints up to 30 politicians under the 1952 law. They had a Royal Commission report in 1986, and this textbook I used as a teacher was published in 1987, proving all the people in the committees, about 43 people, they all admitted that the position of Prime Minister is not in the Australian Constitution. It never has been. It never has been, and they do it by what they say convention, so they just make it up. It's not in the law. It's not in the Commonwealth law. It's not in the Constitution law of 1900. So they just make shit up all the time, don't they? So this man here, Anthony Albanese, that's his published electoral address, 334A Marrickville Road, Marrickville, as his electoral address for the seat of Grangler. And his office is not here. They have moved it a couple of months ago, and they have not got an electoral address for Anthony Albanese. No electoral address. One of the locals told me, no electoral office, no electoral address. So just another example of his criminality and corruption, and all these Labor politicians, they are criminals. The federal and state Labor politicians, they are criminals because they did not win that federal election. They didn't win. They admitted that they didn't win when they admitted that 65% of Australian voters voted one for a different party and a different candidate, not Labor. When they admitted 65% of Australian voters voted one for a different party and a different candidate, that means those candidates and parties won. They won. And then with the preference system, if you extend that, because if you put the box number one, and then two, some people claim the preference system does work when the voter puts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers on the boxes. So that means if their number 1 candidate doesn't win, their number 2 candidate might win, or their number 3 candidate might win, or their number 4 candidate might win. So what happened in the federal election in May is that 65% of Australian voters voted one for a different party or a different candidate. And with the preference system, that means those 65% of Australian voters, they would have put 2, 3, 4 other type right-wing type candidates and parties. So that 65% extends to about 80% Australian voters, because they would have put Labor and the Greens last and second last. So 65% first preference voted for a different party or candidate, not Labor, and then extends to 80% with their preferences that go to the same types of candidates as they would have put for their number 1. You see, they didn't win, they cheated. This man here, Anthony Albanese, whose electoral office is not here anymore, but that's a public address on the Federal Parliament website, and the Google Maps website is 334A Marrickville Road, Marrickville. His office has been vacated 2 months ago, or 3 months ago. A local lady just told me. It's not here, they moved it. And where is it? Just another example of his criminality. All he's doing is going overseas every 5 minutes. He went to Indonesia, then the Vatican, then he went to China, then he went to America, all to do dirty deals with foreigners to destroy the rights and freedoms of the Australian people. That's what that criminal does. If you're a good leader, let me just talk quickly about good leadership. If you're an excellent leader, a good leader, you've got good morals, you've got excellent vision, and you care genuinely about the people of this country or any nation that you're leading. So therefore, you've got excellent morals if you're a good leader, and you're out there in public with the Australian people all the time, helping the Australian people, doing good things for the economy, for the working people and the business people, making sure that freedom and rights are respected and upheld, having a good court system, making sure any government abuses are not happening, no government violence, no police violence, no psychiatric killing or pharma drug killing with the COVID injections and the way that they kill people, Australians and people around the world with those pharmaceutical drugs is just frightening and horrific. And you would make sure that children are with their parents, and parents' rights are respected and have a Bill of Rights for the people. They've been stealing people's children for over, 100 years in Australia. Aboriginal children, white children, Asian children, Christians, terrorising Christian parents, corrupting the school system, corrupting all the teachers, corrupting all the doctors, corrupting all the lawyers, corrupting all the police. That's what these Labor criminals do. These Labor political criminals. This is the public address of the electoral office of Anthony Albanese in New South Wales in Sydney, Marrickville Road, 334A. But he's not here. His office is not here. It's been moved 2 or 3 months ago. And he has no electoral office. So that's just another aspect of the criminality of Anthony Albanese and these criminal Labor politicians who did not win the election of May 2025 when they admitted that 65% of Australian voters voted one for another party. Now, I should be the rightful Governor-General of Australia under God Almighty to lead this country under Section 61 to 70 of the Constitution by appointing a Federal Executive Council of up to 30 politicians. And all these right-wing parties and political leaders and politicians have failed. For the last 10 years, they have failed to publicly promote me for Governor-General, and for some very strange and stupid and evil reason, they seem to be choosing death for the Australian people rather than to have me as Governor-General, which is basically a crime in itself. Now, these Labor political criminals are bringing in all sorts of terrible, evil, shocking laws and practices, just especially in the last few years, and nobody voted for them. Primarily the digital ID system, which they are forcing on Australians and all over the world, which is really evil. They want to starve the world's Christians, and they want to destroy the world's Christians and kill the world's Christians, because these Labor politician criminals, they are devil workers. They're devil workers. They're doing what the devil wants. Also, just very recently, right now, as I'm speaking, the cashless society is being formed in the legislation, in the law. They are rushing through quietly and quickly the cash acceptance regulations law 2025 is going through right now, and that says that law, that's the Labor politicians, that says that law, only supermarkets and petrol stations will have to accept cash, only. Petrol stations and supermarkets will have to accept cash up to $500, that's all. And they are not putting in the law that all business people and organisations across Australia legally do not have to accept cash. They are putting that through right now. That is the first stages of their evil, corrupt and criminal cashless society to kill up all our rights and freedoms and destroy us, starve us as well, because after that is the mark of the beast on the 666 mark of the beast on the right hand or the forehead, as taught in the New Testament. And you can't buy or sell, you cannot buy or sell anything without that mark. So all these so-called freedom and rights leaders and politicians out there, they have failed to promote me for Governor-General, to prevent and stop all these evil things. So you need to tell them very clearly and sternly that they need to promote me for Governor-General, because to stop all these evil things and to work with them to stop it. They can't win without that. We need that Governor-General's job to stop it, because they can't win without it. It's proven that they can't win without it. Labor's got it rigged, and these other politicians are not talking about it, even talking about it. They can't, not talking about it, they're not talking about the criminality. They cannot defeat Labor without promoting me, because they don't know what they're doing. And they don't know, because if they did know what they were doing, if they did know how to get rid of those Labor politicians, they would be publicly speaking about it. They would be publicly speaking about it and providing evidence for it, as I have in my brilliant book and my public teaching and work over the last 10 years. And all the people in Australia, the people in Australia that I know of, and other people that have been providing so much evidence for the criminality of these Labor politicians and how they got it rigged and all that, and how they want them to be jailed. Okay, so we're going to... there's a bit of traffic around, so it's a bit difficult to talk. Also, I'll just quickly show you this death report 2017, Australian Bureau of Statistics, how these murdering, stealing, criminal politicians here, Labor politicians, and most of the Liberal as well, and the Greens and Nationals, those four parties, they should be banned, jailed, deregistered, and have all new politicians, a new Governor-General, new politicians, new police leaders, new judges, new magistrates, new teachers, new doctors, new lawyers. And you know that Governor-General, Sam Moyston, they turned this man here, Anthony Albanese, he turned that woman, Sam Moyston, into a criminal. And the last 125 years, because there's no Prime Minister in the Australian Constitution, so all these Governor-Generals for the past 125 years pretty much are criminals, and they turn that job, that person doing that job, into a criminal. They're paying her $705,000 a year to do absolutely fucking nothing, and rubber stamp all their criminal and corrupt laws and public spending and all this sort of bullshit. And she's even agreeing with all the gender ideology, you know, the mutilation of children, the sexualisation of children in the schools and the grooming and all this horrific stuff going on. She supports it. She's you know, a patron of some group, Equality Australia, which is all about gender ideology. That's what it's about. She supports that, so she's a criminal. Because if you mutilate and sterilise children with puberty blockers and dangerous surgeries and adults, that is evil and violent and criminal to do that and spend public money. They've got 35 gender surgeons in Australia being paid good money to do this. And other Labor politicians put in the law, so they turned that Sam Austin into a criminal. She has to resign. And write to her, tell her to resign, tell her to make Theresa Van Lieshout the Governor-General, make a public petition, write letters, you know, put an e-petition on the Federal Parliament website, make up an e-petition, say you want Theresa Van Lieshout as the Governor-General of Australia to save and help the people of Australia. I just see some young people walking past now, and what they do to the young Australians in this country is just so criminal and disgusting. The way they groom and sexualise them and, you know, corrupt them in the school system with the horrific teachings that they do. And I say that as a teacher myself for 30 years. And as a Christian, okay? But this report, I was talking about this, and I do tend to digress a bit, but the thing is, 75,858 dead Australians in this Australian Bureau of Statistics report in a 13.5-month period. Murdered Australians under the psychiatric practice, but they killed the COVID injection too, you know. And other pharmaceutical drugs can kill, especially the elderly. 75,858 just in a 13.5-month period. All of these Australians were murdered with the practice and these toxic killer pharmaceutical drugs. That's just the tip of the iceberg, because they've been doing this for over 2 centuries, but since the 1920s with the drugs. And the excess deaths in the Australian Bureau of Statistics, again, I don't have that report with me, but it was 25,000 excess deaths for the COVID injection, and that was just 1 year. And the other year it was about over 8,000, and another year it was about 5,000. I've got the exact figures in my book. All right, so now I'm just going to read out the criminal charges and the laws against this criminal politician here, Anthony Albanese, whose office is not even here anymore, but it's not public anywhere else. He's got no electoral office. What a scammer, what a coward. You know, if you're a good leader, you're with the people all the time and helping the people and praising the people, and 3 million homeless Australians, they created all that. Well, what is he doing? He's just pissing off overseas every 5 minutes. And sorry about my language, I know it's just getting, I'm just very angry because this goes on and on and on and everything's getting worse. So, he's just a very good example of bad leadership, bad, corrupt and criminal leadership. He didn't win, he should be in jail with the rest of them. You know, they've got a sign on the corner there. I took a picture of it and I'm going to put it on the Facebook. It's got a red sign on the corner and says, "Racism not welcome." That's a very interesting sign, isn't it? That's on the corner of his, where his electoral office was. I guarantee you 100% the people that put that sign up, "Racism not welcome," are the most racist people in Australia. And they may as well put a sign up there that said, "We hate white people." Because they're happy to kill off all the white people all over the world, isn't that true? With all this late-term abortion and all this sort of thing. And in the psychiatric killing, it's a lot of white people they're killing off, elderly white people, and that is a fact. 100%. And if you have a look at these late-term abortion, it's also a lot of white people they're killing off with that. And the Aboriginal people they murdered as well for 235 years, criminals like this. Because Labor politicians were all in the state parliaments before Federation, before 1900. So they're hypocrites. They murdered most of the Aboriginal people. The Aboriginal people are only 3.2% of the population now. And they murdered them. This political party, communists, socialists. And then they pretend to care about the Aboriginal people. What a lot of bullshit. Because they're only 3.2% of the population. So they kill off all the white people too for decades, just like they did to the Aboriginal people. As I said, they pretend to care about them, but they don't care one bit because they're trying to cover up their guilty crimes. And so we care. But everything they lie about and twist over and all this sort of thing, and they don't care one bit. And that's why they're always running off overseas all the time. They're always running off overseas to other countries. They're never in public. They're never in the streets with the people. The people did not vote for them. They didn't vote for them. These criminals, and they admitted it. Why isn't the Liberal politicians talking about? Why isn't Pauline Hanson talking about that with the media? How 65% of Australian voters voted for a different party or candidate. Why aren't those politicians talking about it and saying they must have it rigged? They're not talking about the criminality. They can't win because they're not talking about it. So they have to call me and come and see me and have a meeting with me because I've got the solutions and the answers, and I've had them for 10 years. And the violence that I've suffered, tried to kill me and tried to assassinate me like they did to Mr. Trump. Put me in prison without trial for 7.5 months for saying I'm the rightful Governor General of Australia. And then another 8.5 months home detention on top of that. Just for free speech, for words. But you've got men in society who rape children and rape women and children. They don't even go to jail. And all these idiots with machetes and all these foreigners they bring in with machetes and all this, and they're terrorising everybody in Victoria. Oh, they don't go to jail. They got them on the street. That police commissioner, Mike Bush, he admitted it. But they were still roaming around the streets, 90% of them. Absolutely horrific. And the way they use the police, you know what? I'm the only leader in this country who actually used the police correctly. And morally correctly, and have divisions of policing, homicide, rape, narcotics, violent, dangerous criminals, corporate corruption, serious corporate corruption, serious political and government corruption, have divisions of policing. I know, as the right moral leader of this country, how to do that. I know how to do that and direct and instruct and provide leadership, proper leadership to the police so that they are getting serious, dangerous criminals locked up and generally respecting the population, the freedom and rights of the population, so that respect and honour and good works will be attributed to the police again, because they need much better moral leadership. They've got very bad leaders, very bad politicians, very bad judges, very bad police leaders. That's why all these problems in Australia. Okay, I'm just going to read it out now. Criminal charges and the laws. Well, this criminal here, Anthony Albanese, he's moved his office to nowhere. Objected to publicly gather in front of federal and state Labor politicians' office, lawfully and peacefully publicly call for the arrest of such politicians, read out with a microphone as follows. Film and publish. Arrest powers under the Crimes Act 1914 Commonwealth. 3WA, arrest powers without warrant by constables. 3Z, arrest powers without warrant by other persons, that's by the Australian people. 3ZA, warrants for arrest. 3ZB, power to enter premises to arrest. 3ZD, person to be informed of arrest grounds. Section 15AA, bail not to be granted under any circumstances. Use any other Commonwealth or state law arrest person powers available. And you can email those arrest power videos to police stations or in the states and federal police. Charges, 25 years jail. The Crimes Act 1900, Part 2, offences against sovereigns. That's in the law, the Commonwealth law. You harm sovereigns in Australia, that is a criminal offence under Part 2 of the Crimes Act 1900. So these criminal state Labor politicians jailing all these sovereign people, they call themselves sovereign citizens. I don't do that, I call myself just a teacher. But if you're born in any nation, you're a sovereign of that nation. They even made laws about it in 1900. If you put those people in jail and harm those people and use violence against the people, the people born in this nation, that's a criminal offence. And they're clueless about that, aren't they? Part 3, Division 1, homicide, murder and manslaughter. Division 2, conspiring to commit murder. Division 3, attempts to murder. Division 4, threats in writing. Division 5, aids and or abets suicide. Division 6, acts causing danger to life, bodily harm. Division 8 and 9, assaults on the people. You know, when they steal people's children, the worst thing you can steal is people's children. It's worse than stealing a boat or a car or a house or money or anything. And some of these parents, they commit suicide and all this sort of thing. That's aids and abets suicide. That's what the government does, what I call government-driven suicide. Or the homeless people, they commit suicide and they just feed all the homeless people through the prison system, and the lethal psychiatric killing system. It's horrific. They're causing people to commit suicide. They want that. That's very, very criminal to do that. Schedule 2 of the Criminal Code Act 1995, Commonwealth, Section 80.11, treason. Section 80.1, subsection 2, assisting in treasonous offences. Section 268.4 to 7, genocidal factors. Section 268.8, crimes against humanity, murder. Section 268.9, crimes against humanity, extermination. So, you know, when you talk about depopulation, well, that's what's that really? That's mass murder, isn't it? Extermination, that's what that is. Criminal Code Act 1995, Commonwealth, Chapter 5, Part 5, Division 80, treason and assisting in treasonous offences. Treachery, sedition, urging violence against the Constitution, that's a criminal offence. Bet you didn't know that one. And urging violence against the Australian people, that's a criminal offence under the Criminal Code Act 1995, Commonwealth, Chapter 5, Part 5, Division 80. And genocidal factors. Division 82, sabotage. Division 91, espionage. Division 100 to 105A, planning, urging and using terrorism on the people, that's a criminal offence. Division 115, harming Australians is a criminal offence and it's in the law. Division 115 of the Criminal Code Act 1995 Commonwealth, called harming Australians, is a criminal offence. And all these political and government criminals, they are guilty, guilty, guilty. Chapter 7, Part 7, Division 130 to 132, lying, stealing. Division 133 to 137, fraud, dishonesty. Division 138 to 139, threats towards Commonwealth public officials, if the people in the public are claiming that. Division 140 to 145, bribery and forgery. Criminal Code Act 1995, Commonwealth, Chapter 8, genocidal factors, crimes against humanity and related offences. Division 268, subdivisions A, B and C. Politicians are guilty of almost everything in this division. Subdivision B, Section 268.2 to 7, genocide by killing, causing serious bodily and mental harm, deliberately inflicting painful conditions on human life, like lockdown conditions, or where they're locking people in government buildings and drugging them or harming them. That's all criminal acts towards the population. And picking on innocent, defenceless people. How cowardly and criminal and violent and disgusting is that for them with all this power? They've got all the power and money and control in the world, and then they go terrorise all the vulnerable people. How evil! Imposing sterilisation, forced drugging, psychiatric and vax and prolific abortion measures intended to prevent birth. This late-term abortion stuff is all criminal under the law, under the Commonwealth law. Subdivision B, Section 268.2 to 7. Also, forcibly transferring, stealing the people's children is a criminal offence. When they steal people from birth parents, no criminal charges because they don't do that, they just steal the child. and they give them to strangers in the foster system, and they get raped sometimes and killed. And to do that to parents is just horrific. You know, that's forcibly transferring, stealing the people's children. That's a Commonwealth criminal charge. When the government people do that, terrorising parents, terrorising families, ripping these children away without a serious allegation or any criminal charge. Of all the paperwork I've seen over the last 10 years, I never saw one serious allegation of rape or anything, not a sexual violation or no physical beating or anything. It was all these stupid, trivial reasons, which are all bloody bullshit anyway. They do it to terrorise the parents and terrorise the families and rip those children away. They lie to the parents, they don't let them see them, they cut off all the rights of the birth parent, and the child gets to 18, they don't even know who the birth parent is, they can't contact them, they don't know who they are, and that's just soul destroying. And doing that to Australian people or anyone all over the world is a criminal act. Under the Australian Commonwealth law, that is a criminal offence. Subdivision C, crimes against humanity. Section 268.8, murder. Section 268.9, extermination. Section 268.10, enslavement. If you deliberately enslave the people by wanting people unemployed, wanting people homeless, wanting people drugged, forced up, killing them with that, that is enslavement. Arbitrary imprisonment, section 268.12. You jail people without trial. Murderers and rapists, sure, jail them without trial, jail them on remand. Drug dealers. Serious violent criminals, yeah, lock them up on remand, but not the general population for stupid, trivial things like they're homeless or they stole a loaf of bread or they didn't want to give you money because the fine system, because they're too poor to give you any money. You can't do that to people. These people have got no morals, these politicians have got no morals, no wisdom, no intelligence. They are stupid and evil. Stupid and evil is a very bad combination for a politician or a leader. Smart and evil is also a very dangerous combination because they're going to do evil things to the population. Torture, 268.13, torture. Every time they lock people up, Australians, without, you know, in a psychiatric building or a prison or even an aged care building, that's torture. They don't want to be there, that's torture. Section 268.14, rape. Section 268.15 to 17, section slavery and enforced prostitution. Prostitution is degrading to women and is degrading to men as well. And everything sexual on the internet should be taken off. You've got all these dangerous groomers on the internet. And forced pregnancy, section 268.18 is forced sterilisation. They've got that in the state law, sterilisation. They still have it in there. Section 268.19, sexual violence. Section 268.20, persecution of the people. That's a criminal offence. Section 268.21, stealing people, including stealing children. Section 268.22, apartheid towards the Australian population. Section 268.23, other inhumane acts. That's the recording going, okay? Constitution Act 1900, Section 51, XXXI, seizure of property. The Australian people own politicians' offices and the Parliament House buildings. Section 51XX1X, applied special human rights power to Australian-born people, which is Australian sovereigns. If you're born in any nation on earth, you're a sovereign of that nation. That's what that means, okay? Section 51XXX1X, incidental national applied power. Crimes Act 1914, Section 43(1), arrest anyone who attempts to obstruct, pervert or defeat your course of justice. Crimes Act 1914, Section 15GE2B, fraud, lockdown conditions based on lies and fraud or other abusive conditions. And Section 2 for 24AA treachery, Crimes Act 1958 in Victoria, Section 9A treason. Any other state criminal codes and state confiscation seizure property acts apply. The Electoral Act 1918 proves Labor politicians rig elections. They didn't win. And there's so much prolific other evidence proves Labor and Liberal politicians rig federal and state elections. They put it in the law. So I encourage the public to do this on Sunday, the 9th of November, which is today, the 16th of November. Next Sunday I'll be doing this in front of another Labor politician's office. I'm not sure which one yet. Probably somewhere in Melbourne or Canberra. The 23rd of November, that's the following Sunday, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. to encourage Australians to speak about all sorts of issues. And this wandering around the streets and all that's not doing anything. All the organisers of those public rallies, they're to blame as well, do you know that? They need to promote me for Governor-General, and they need to go to the front of these politicians' offices, as criminal Labor politicians' offices, read out all these charges and laws and demand they be arrested. You cannot get rid of them otherwise. So many years and years and years, 10 years wasted, because these selfish, greedy selfish organisers, have been just leading people astray, effectively doing nothing, and censoring people from speaking. And I have, as an Australian-born teacher, my campaign 2025 is to make me your Governor-General Australia, and also vote for your Governor-General Australia. There should be a list of candidates for Australians to vote for a Governor-General's job. You've got to fight for it. You've got to speak for it and fight for it. Get an e-petition going on the Federal Parliament website. Get one on the change.org. I know a lady just got one done the other day. But it should have been done years ago. Put an e-petition on the Federal Parliament website for me to become the Governor-General. So we can save this country. I have proven in my book and my other public work for over 10 years, I have proven how to do that. I have proven it well and truly. All right, thanks so much. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you.